Well, my friends, this here is a big turning point episode. Things are about to be changing pretty quick in Pokemon history. Not only is this the swan song for Generation 2, it's also the swan song for the Game Boy Color. The Nintendo 64 lifespan is ending, Pokemon's popularity is slightly dipping, and the world will not be the same after the events of September 2001. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves here, we're still kicking it strong in the summer of 2001. Pokémon 3 the movie has been out, the anime is wrapping up the Johto Journey season, the 9th set of Pokemon cards are out with Neo Discovery, and it's been 4 months since the North American release of Pokemon Stadium 2. So it is once again time to bring in a Japanese release that had already been out there for almost 7 months at this point. This next game actually came out the exact same day as Pocket Monsters Stadium Gold and Silver that we know as Pokemon Stadium 2 in North America and Europe, making the Japanese version of that N64 classic compatible with red, green, blue, yellow, gold, silver, and this new release, Pokemon Crystal version. But even though the North American box for Pokemon Stadium 2 has no mention of Pokemon Crystal, it actually is compatible with that as well. Traditional Pokemon developer Game Freak was once again brought back to make an enhanced version for the Gold and Silver versions, similar to how Blue was actually an enhanced version of Red and Green in Japan, and then Yellow version was a step beyond those. Since North America never got the Green version, the Yellow version is considered the enhanced version over Red and Blue for Generation 1. So you know what? Why not do the same for Gold and Silver? Those games certainly aren't perfect and tend to have some issues that mostly get addressed here. But is Crystal considered the definitive Generation 2 version? Let's go a little more into it. Pokemon Crystal version was released in Japan on December 14th, 2000. Like I said, on the same day as Pokemon Stadium Gold and Silver. And then on July 29th, 2001 in North America, September 30th, 2001 in Australia, and finally on November 2nd, 2001 in Europe. It follows the same story and structure as the Gold and Silver versions, with some slight differences and upgrades, even with some story elements. But before we get into all that, I think it's time we adhere to tradition and check out the box, once again pretending we are enjoying the sweet summer of 2001. I can hear that Christina Aguilera, Lil Kim, Maya, and Pink classic of Lady Marmalade in my head as I type this. So just like with all of the main Pokemon releases, the box art is simply one featured Pokemon with some greens, purples, and blues in the back. Gold and Silver had Ho-Oh and Lugia respectively, but this time they chose to put the spotlight on one of the 3 legendary beasts, Suicune. Suicune is the Aurora Pokemon and is the pure water type legendary beast, completing the trio of fire type Entei and electric type Raikou. The legendary beasts were a very interesting mechanic in Gold and Silver. While the legendary birds of Ho-Oh and Lugia were attainable in the same places no matter what, the beasts were completely different. Once you discover them in Ecruteak City, all 3 of them would be on any given route in Johto, and change routes at random whenever you entered a new area. They were trackable on your Pokegear, but you could easily complete the game and never encounter one. And if you did encounter one, they fled after you either attacked or threw a ball, similar to Abra using Teleport. However, they keep the same HP if you did deal damage the next time you encounter them. It was a really cool addition to the games. It made obtaining them even more rewarding, as it wasn't even a guarantee you would ever see one, let alone all 3. But what I find interesting is that they chose Suicune to be the Pokemon they feature on the cover, even though Entei was one of the spotlight Pokemon on Pokemon 3 the movie. Well, I guess technically unknown as the spotlight Pokemon as it's in the title, but Entei plays a large role in it, and it's on all the posters. But now I'm getting way off track. The point is, Suicune is the cover Pokemon for Pokemon Crystal, and that basically is the entire cover. The back of the box states, the latest in the Gold and Silver series. Travel back to the world of Johto as the Gold and Silver series continues with brand new features. Whether you're reading the fresh descriptions in your Pokedex, now that's a strange thing to open with. I'm not going to go out and buy yet another version of Gold or Silver just because there are new Pokedex entries. It's cool they changed them and all, but really it's just added lore. Using the unique sort function to organize your Pokemon in new ways, watching the all-new battle animations, or discovering another way to capture Suicune TM. You'll need all of your Poke skills to master Pokemon Crystal on your Game Boy Color. Okay, to be honest, none of this really sounds like it's prompting me to go out and buy it in addition to Gold or Silver. If it was my first Gen 2 game, sure, but new Pokedex entries, new ways to organize, whatever that means, new animations, and another way to capture Suicune, these all sound like improvements and all, but is that enough? Is this game actually for me if I already own Gold and or Silver? Unlock the mysteries of the unknown! All new puzzles and rewards await you in the ruins of Alph. Okay, so there is some new content then. The Ruins of Alpha was kinda cool, but felt more like side content, and it's not like you're catching Unknown to use on your team. You go in, solve some puzzles, and try to collect every variation of Unknown, each resembling letters of the English alphabet. So what would they possibly add to this? Fight through the Battle Tower, a challenging tournament featuring Johto's best trainers. Now we're talking. A Battle Tower sounds like straight up extra content to explore, so that's something. For the first time, play as a male or female trainer. Kinda crazy that it took this long to have this be a thing. With that said, I guess with Gen 1, you are supposed to be playing as a specific character named Red, so it's kinda like you being Mario in a Mario game, Link in a Zelda game, Samus in a Metroid game, etc. But also, come on, it's not like Red has any personality there. He's basically a generic blank slate character, so it makes sense to offer a male or female version for Pokemon. Pokemon's demographic can really be for anybody of any race, gender, age, whatever, so this is a good addition to at least have the option. And it will stick for future installments too. It all started here with Crystal. Trade with gold, silver, red, blue, and yellow versions to catch 'em all. Requires game link cable sold separately. Gold and silver series Pokemon cannot be traded back to red, blue, or yellow versions. If you own gold or silver already, this isn't news to you. Gen 2 Pokemon didn't exist for red, blue, or yellow, so it makes sense. With that said, this is important to know though, because if you have seen what the cartridge looks like at this point, it's the clear Game Boy Color version that does not work on the original Game Boy or Game Boy Pocket. So this is helpful to know that there is compatibility anyway. Compatible with Pokemon Stadium 2 for the Nintendo 64, not compatible with Pokemon Stadium. Yes, I have certainly already covered this, but again, very important to know if you do own Pokemon Stadium 2. Then the art pictures show what the male and female protagonists look like. Understandable that this is what they show. And then 2 gameplay images. Only the best trainers can master the new Battle Tower, and it shows a picture of the female protagonist outside of a tall building. Also understandable as they are emphasizing the Battle Tower as a selling point for this game. Image 2 is a wild encounter of an Unknown, specifically the letter E, and it says, New female trainer Chris faces the Unknown. Gameplay on the Game Boy Color video game system. Basic reading ability is needed to fully enjoy this game. So Chris is the name of the newcomer here, and I didn't personally remember this, but the male option's name is Ethan, so there you have it. Then at the top, it specifies that this is only for Game Boy Color, but also, oh yes, 1 month prior to this release, the successor to the Game Boy Color was released in North America, the Game Boy Advance. We'll be getting more into that next time, but it's cool to see that if you do own one, Pokemon Crystal works on that too. And then our old friends Link Cable, Infrared, and Printer. This is my last chance to make fun of the Game Boy Printer, but I got nothing. You can print out the Pokédex entry for Flaffy, I guess? Send it to your mom for Mother's Day? I don't know. She'll love it. So what I take from what is different based on the back alone, there's a Battle Tower, new stuff in the Ruins of Alph, and then some new animations, Pokédex entries, a playable female character named Chris, and a new way to catch Suicune. That all sounds like that would make this the definitive Gen 2 version, but is that really enough to warrant buying this in addition to either gold or silver? It's hard to tell if this is targeted toward those who didn't already own one or not. But okay, let's check out the game proper and see if we can answer that question. So we first get Ditto becoming the Game Freak logo, which is a nice touch. I now know that it's not the real Game Freak. But our intro here is very much focusing on Unknown and Suicune. A bunch of Unknown are trying to contact each other, I guess, as a Suicune runs by, startling a random Wooper and Pichu. And finally, the Unknown spell out Crystal at the end. It's a pretty decent opening. This game appears to be all about Unknown, just like the Unknown being the focus of Pokemon 3 the movie. Was it really that popular of a Pokemon back then? I don't think I ever took the time to go get all the letters. Anyway, actually starting the game is pretty much the same as in Gold or Silver. I already went over the story in the Gold and Silver episode, so my focus here will be on what exactly is different in this version. So rather than go over every single detail on what has changed, and there are quite a few minor ones, I'll just mention some that stand out to me. But really there are a handful of aesthetic changes, like a few color swaps and even redesigned areas. The game corners, ice path, dragon's den, and part of the radio tower are a couple examples. Ho-Oh and Lugia really take a backseat to the legendary beasts in this one, as they are caught much later into the game. Entei, Raikou, and Suicune now have their own sprite icons and battle themes to make them more unique to each other. As I mentioned on the box, each Pokemon now has their own little animation when entering the battle screen too. It's just a cool little thing to look for to see what they came up with. I like Chikorita's animation with the helicopter leaf. The wild Pokemon and encounter rates are almost all different everywhere too. You can find certain Pokemon earlier than others to try and help balance the games a little more. For example, you can now find Hoppip on Route 29, the first route in the game. Phanpy, Poliwag, and Teddiursa are all very early potential encounters as well. But to contrast that, some Pokemon are only found in Gold and Silver and can only be acquired through trades on Crystal, which is par for the course for any Pokemon game. Mareep, Flaffy, Ampharos, Girafarig, Remoraid, and Octillery are only on Gold and Silver, Vulpix and Ninetales are only on the Silver version, and Mankey and Primeape are only on Gold. The Gen 1 starters, Fossils, and Legendaries remain only on Gen 1 as well. Another cool addition here is the existence of the Odd Egg. The Daycare Man will give you an odd egg, and the hatched Pokemon has a 50% chance of being shiny, and it will know the move Dizzy Punch. The baby options are Pichu, Cleffa, Igglybuff, Tyrogue, Smoochum, Elekid, and Magby. It's a cool little addition to give your playthrough some extra randomness. But there are 3 more things I want to talk about that were emphasized on the box. The Suicune encounter, the Ruins of Alph, and the Battle Tower. So as far as Suicune goes, another way to capture Suicune is true. It's no longer grouped in with Entei and Raikou as a random encounter only. So there's this dude named Usign who has a weird obsession with Suicune, and he will follow you around on occasion talking about it and battle you in order to earn its respect. He's kinda nuts. But now once you complete the radio tower part of the game, you get the Clear Bell, which will allow you to battle and capture Suicune in the Tin Tower and it won't flee. So basically it acts as this game's Ho-Oh or Lugia encounter. That's really about it. So then what's with all the emphasis put on Unknown in this game? Well, the Ruins of Alph, the area where you can find Unknown, are slightly different this time. This time there are some side puzzles to solve, you can obtain some different items, and there's some added lore. It's really nothing substantial and is really just something else to do if you've fully completed the game. I'm honestly a little confused as to why they are hyping up Unknown so much here, but I'm sure it has its fans. The only move it can learn is Hidden Power, and they aren't strong statistically, so Unknown really only exists for collectors. And lastly, the final big addition here is the Battle Tower. This sort of acts like this game's stadium from the Pokemon Stadium games. You enter 3 Pokemon and battle 7 trainers in a row in level increments of 10 to earn some stat boosting prizes. The Battle Tower is an addition that will appear among other generations and supply some added challenge and content to do. It can be good fun playing through this and tends to be a fan favorite addition. And that's really about it. Of course there are even more changes throughout, but really Crystal is seen as the definitive version of Generation 2. With that said, unless you are a huge fan of the Battle Tower, there really isn't a crazy amount of changes here to warrant getting this in addition to Gold or Silver. If you're going to only play one of the 3, Crystal is probably the one to go with though. So as far as my personal history with this game goes, I never had any desire to go out and buy this or get it as a gift. I own the Silver version, so I wasn't convinced enough to see any reason to get this too. I definitely didn't have a job at 15. With that said, I did go get the yellow version when it came out even though I already had the blue version, but my Poke fandom was higher than it was in mid-2001. I was 15 and enjoying my summer vacation before heading into my sophomore year of high school, and our family had just gotten a computer with the internet for the first time, so most of my time was spent on AOL Instant Messenger anyway. Pokemon was kinda dying down for me at this point. So I have never owned a copy of Pokemon Crystal, but I did actually play it when it was added to the 3DS Virtual Console in 2018. But now we're getting way too ahead of ourselves here. But I'm just saying that my introduction to this was only within the last few years or so.
Where's that Parasect?
It's time to find out what you have to do to get your very own stylish mushroom bug in Pokemon Crystal. Well, since this game is compatible with all of the other existing Pokemon versions, trading one over is always an option. However, check this out, yo. Parasect isn't found in the wild in Gold or Silver, but they decided to give you a sweet treat this July. Mount Silver, ever heard of it? It's only the ultimate cave in the game where you can go fight Red in the post-game, where the strongest Pokemon are located. So obviously Parasect is here as well at levels 46 and 48 on the second floor, and levels 46 to 52 in the chambers. A wild level 52 Parasect, could you imagine? And aside from that, you can always catch a Paras to level up, once again located in the bug catching contest in the National Park, as well as Ilex Forest and its place of origin, Mount Moon. So many ways to lay waste with our shroomy friends. So reception-wise, Pokemon Crystal received some solid B to A grades, with a consensus that there really isn't enough in it to justify getting this and Gold or Silver. What's interesting is that this idea of having different versions did seem to influence the Game Boy Color Legend of Zelda releases with Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, sort of becoming the red and blue versions for the Zelda series in a way. They are different games, but it's kinda cool that there's some overlap there. I mention this because those games received universal praise, sort of shadowing over Crystal. They were the big GBC 2001 releases, but Crystal did win out on sales. Sales-wise, this tends to get grouped in with Gold and Silver, making this the Gen 2 trilogy of versions. The three combined are easily the best-selling Game Boy Color games of all time, but even isolating Crystal on its own, it sold almost 6.5 million copies worldwide, placing it above Pokemon Pinball and Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, the other two best-selling Game Boy Color games. So even though it seemed like Pokemon was phasing out a little bit, it certainly wasn't hurting for sales. But soon after this release, September 11th occurred, which certainly changed the world in a big way. Pokemon would then go on a bit of a hiatus in the gaming world. There would be no North American release in the entirety of 2002, making it the only year since it stormed on the scene in 1998 to not get a game release in North America. That's pretty crazy to think of, actually. But yeah, this episode actually concludes Generation 2. It was a very quick time for the series, and this Paraspective, with only 5 entries. Also, per tradition, if I were to do a quick ranking of each Gen 2 entry, it would be Hey You Pikachu easily in 5th, Pokemon Puzzle Challenge in 4th, Pokemon Stadium 2 in 3rd, Pokemon Crystal in 2nd, and Pokemon Gold and Silver in 1st, just because the Silver version meant so much to me when it was released. Crystal may be objectively better, but I will always love my barely functioning Silver version. But oh boy, once we kick off Generation 3, yeah, I'm going to have 11 episodes throughout that duration, so we'll be there for a while. So join me next time as we go all the way to the year 2003 to kick off Generation 3 proper. Paraspectre will return for Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire.